Thanks for being with us.
Sure.
Give me, if you would, your full name and your date of birth.
Janan Mikhail Bateh, and I was born January 9, 1944.
That's a good day because that's my birthday.
Oh, you're kidding.
You know we're videotaping this. Do
Yes.
we have your permission to use it like we need to use it in any way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You were born in Ramallah.
In Ramallah.
Where did you grow up in Ramallah?
I grew up in Ramallah, uptown, like they say, close to the hospital, the new hospital now. And I went to Friends School, and we grew up next to my aunts, my grandmother, my cousins. We had a great neighborhood. We all grew together, and we'd play out all day, and everybody took care of everybody else. And we just knew we had to be home for dinner.
Otherwise, you were out, right?
Most of the time, unless we were in school, of course, afterward.
Now, growing up in your house, who was living with you?
It was my mother, my father, and my two sisters. My sister and brother had left when I was very young. I had an older sister and brother, like 10 years older than I am. So they left after school to come to college to the States. So I don't remember them that much. I remember a few things about them, but other than that.
But they moved away when
They
you were
moved
young.
away when I was young. Well, they finished school and came to college
Yes.
here to the States.
Now, as far as describe the house to me.
House was a small house. I shared the bedroom with my sister. My parents had their own bedroom. We had a small dining room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a beautiful garden with all the fruit trees that you want. And we used to wait for my grandmother to take a nap in the afternoon so we can raid the trees, because she would yell if they were hard. She wanted us to wait till everything is ripened to pick it. So it was fun. It was a challenge. And we had lots of cousins around us, so we hung out with each other all the time.
And did you have electricity in the house?
Yes.
And indoor plumbing?
Indoor plumbing.
Indoor plumbing. What did your father do for a living?
My father had a coffee shop in town, and that's what he did. Everybody went to the coffee shop, and he knew everybody in town.
Was there a name to it?
Not really. Kahwat Abu Hanna.
Tell me about your grandparents, who they were on your father's side.
I only remember on my father's side my grandmother, and she lived in town, so we didn't see her that often. And my mother's mother had died before I ever knew her. But then my father's father, my grandfather, had married again, and this grandmother she wasn't my real grandmother, my step-grandmother, but we always felt like she was our grandmother. She lived across the street from us, and we loved her to death, and she treated us, we wanted to sleep in her house, we wanted to be in her room, and when they moved to Nablus for a few years with her daughter, we were all anxious to go and visit with her so she could make us certain food, and so we had a good time with. I remember her. I remember my mother's father, my grandfather on my mother's side. Later in his life, he used to walk from downtown to our house, and by the time he got to us, he would just ask me for a jodele to put under the tree so he could take a nap. And I would be anxious to go give him that little thing so he could just lie down and take a nap. And he couldn't talk too much, but we just loved seeing him. So, and then he died shortly after, and so did my grandmother.
What school did you go to?
I went to Friends Girls School. First I went to the public school, Madras al-Ma'arif, and then I went to the Friends School.
And when you were growing up, did you ever travel outside of Ramallah?
Yes, I was in the Quaker school, and we were Quakers, my mother and father. And we went to Beirut with the Quakers to Brumana, and of course Jerusalem and Nablus and Beit Lahem, and I had two aunts that were nuns that were teaching in Beit Lahem, so we used to visit them often. But that's it. Out of the state, we only went to Beirut.
what, you said in your house you shared the rooms with your sisters, right?
Yes.
Your bedroom. What, what do you remember, you told a little bit about, but what do you remember of your, what sticks out most about your childhood, either you personally or what would happen around Ramallah, the things that come to mind most?
I remember we were always looking forward to my aunt Khalti, used to live in Amman, and she used to come and visit us in the summer and bring her daughter and son with her. And we used to look forward to bringing them over and taking them out to play and be with them. And my mom will always make special meals for them. And so that kind of stuck with my mind. And a lot of my friends that were around, we used to take walks and pick red flowers and pick the hasu and play games with. And we had a great childhood. We didn't worry about anything. Nothing bothered us. Nothing worried us. We were happy, free, doing what we wanted to do. Nobody told us not to. Everybody did the same thing. So there was no competition or no asking for something that you couldn't have. So it was fun growing up there. I have great memories of being in Ramallah.
And did you, say in school, did you all play sports or anything?
I played volleyball, loved volleyball. And I wanted to play tennis, but we didn't. I played the piano, and then we didn't have a piano to practice. I used to go to the church to practice. Then it was too much trouble. I quit.
So after the French school, what was after the French school?
Last year of high school, Albert came, and I met him, and we got married, and we came to this country.
Did you think he was handsome?
Absolutely. He was very handsome.
And you're not just saying that for the
I'm
camera?
not just saying that, no. I had a big crush on him. He used to play cards at my father's coffee shop, and I used to sneak in the back and ask my father for some money to go buy ice cream just so I can see him. We all had a crush on him.
Now, so you got married at what, 18?
17.
17. So out of school, you met your husband.
Yes.
Then you moved to the States. Were you
Yeah,
ready
we
to
stayed.
move?
Yes, actually, I was looking forward because my sister and brother were in the States, and I haven't seen them for 15, 16 years. So that was a big thing for me, having to meet my sister and brother after all these years. Because they haven't gone back to Ramallah since. They were in the States, and then my sister got married, and my brother got married, and I haven't seen them. So I was looking forward to seeing them. And then the excitement of being in the States and New York City and all that. But
And did your sister and brother, where were they living at?
they were in Long Island and in Boston. And actually, our plane was delayed, and we had a bad storm. We couldn't land in New York. We landed in Boston. So I was excited that I would see my brother. And in the meantime, my brother came to New York to meet me, knowing that I was arriving in New York. So I called him, and his wife answered and said, "He's in New York trying to meet you." So the next day, we got back to New York, and he was there.
And once you, other than Beirut, you hadn't been outside of Palestine. What did you think of the U.S., say that
When I
within
first came?
Yes.
Oh, it was very exciting for me because everything was different. Like taking the subway to go to Manhattan was very exciting. Going to the supermarket and having your own wagon and picking your own stuff without asking anybody for anything was different. Having to go and do everything on your own was different, not to ask anybody. In Ramallah, you used to go to the store and tell him, "Give me a Lebanese, give me tomatoes, give me a rattle of this." And here you had to go on your own and do everything and carry it home. It was different. It was just exciting. I was writing like 6 letters a day to my parents back home, telling them about the new things that I'm experiencing. And I lived with Albert's mother and his sister and his brother and his uncle in the house until I had the first child, my daughter Dina. And then when I was pregnant with Jimmy, we decided to move to our own place. But we were close to them, and we were seeing them every Sunday, have meals with them and all. And Albert's mother was like my own mother because from the same town, the same language, so it wasn't very difficult. It was like from one mother to another. She treated me like her own daughter. So introduced me to everything that was new in the States that I didn't know.
And once you moved here, did you, other than, of course, your close family, or did you make friends with, initially with neighbors or anything?
Yes, I made friends with all the neighbors. And of course, the kids went to school. I made great friends with friends from school, all their friends' parents. But most of them were not Arabs. We didn't have a big Arabic community in Brooklyn, where we lived. So all my friends were Greek, Italian, Irish, and they're friends till now. We have friends from 40 years ago we still see that we made.
Now, your first home when you came was in Brooklyn, right?
Yes.
And that's where you had your 4 kids?
No, I had my first daughter there, and I was pregnant with my son, my first son, when we moved. And then Albert's sister and brother died in a car accident. We moved back to the house to be with his mom and lived there for many years until we moved to Florida in 1989.
Florida in 89, okay, to
Yeah.
Jacksonville? Or
To Ponte Vedra, which is
Ponte Vedra.
close to Jacksonville.
Okay. And what year was that?
89.
89. So your kids were
They were grown, and we were going back and forth a lot from Florida to New York. Not till 93 we were there full time.
And you have relatives back in Ramallah?
I have lots of relatives. I have a lot of my cousins. I have aunts and uncles, and of course, for the longest time, I had my mother and father and my sister, and yes, I had lots of. Last year we were there, and I visited all my family. Went to every one of them and saw them. It was very nice.
Well, tell me about going back home to Ramallah.
When I first went back, it was 10 years after I got married. I went in 72, and things were not that bad. I still had some friends, and I still recognized the places that we grew up with. And then the second time I went, it was difficult. A lot of my friends had left, but I still loved being there. It just always, I used to say I'm going home, and everybody said, I thought New York is your home. I said, no, but home is where you're born, that's home. So I loved being back there. And until last year even, and not too many of my friends, but still I had family, and it means a lot to me to go back. I love being there. Even so it's changed, and I don't know half of the people that are there, but it's just the idea of being there, it's exciting. Having to walk through the street where my parents, where I grew up, and having to see my aunt cross the street, or having to see my sister down the road, or see my 94-year-old aunt 2 doors down and go visit her, and brings a lot of good memories. So I still love going back, even so things have changed.
What about anything that sticks in your mind, any stories, anything that could give us a little idea of a little more of the flavor or culture of Ramallah that you want to mention?
Things we look forward to at Christmas time used to be my uncle, my mother's brother, my mother's brother, Khali. He used to dress up like Santa Claus, and we didn't have Santa Claus in Ramallah, but he would do that at Christmas Eve, and we would all go to his house, and he would tell stories after story. Oh, I heard so-and-so was a mayor, or so-and-so had left, and say, how did he know all these stories? And then if we got a bar of chocolate or a pair of socks, we were excited as anything. It wasn't as big as a gift. It was the idea of you're getting something from Santa. And he fooled us all these years until I think we were 12 or 13. We always thought, oh, there was Santa coming from the North Pole. So that was very exciting.
Then what
And-
about? Go ahead.
And then there were stories that my mother and father always told us about I was born 44, so in 48, when the war started and everybody came from Palestine, my father was born in Lid. His mother was from Lid. And then he came back to Ramallah a few years later when his grandmother died. They used to tell us all the stories about all the people that came from Lid and stayed, not in our house because our house was too small, but in the garden. and how my mother and father would cook every day and feed them all, and then how all their clothes would be coming and they would wash them by hand and hang them up, and loads of people, but they all people that my father grew up with and knew, so they felt very comfortable. But the heartache that they went to and had no place, slept outside in the garden and all that, it used to fascinate me to hear the stories about that.
And this was right in 48, you mean?
Right. I mean, I was 4 years old, but my mother and father spoke about the stories that happened later on that I remember. So that stuck in my mind, always thinking those poor people and how my mother had to, wash all their clothes by hand, and how they had to cook every day for all these people, and how they gave them shelter, and I don't remember it, but I remember the stories that they were telling us. So it was exciting.
So about the war specifically, you don't.
And I don't remember. No, I was 4 years old. I don't remember. So they can just turn it off. I have to turn it off.
That's okay. It'll go to voicemail later.
I don't care. And just turn it off.
What have we missed? Anything else you'd like to tell us about?
Not really. I just love being in Ramallah. If somebody asked me, you'd go there and live again, I'd say yes. Even so the conveniences are not the same, or so I still have that feeling of being there. So that's about it.
Great. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Okay.